Hey everybody, this is Roberto Blake, and in today's video I'm going to walk you through some of the basics of Adobe Illustrator. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so one of the things we need to take into account is the basic overall layout of Illustrator. It's very much like any other Adobe program. We have our artboard here, we have our tools panel over on the left, and we have our options panel over here on the right. And you can rearrange this to suit your taste or your personal setup. But let's jump right into the tools. The most important tool in Adobe Illustrator is the pen tool for making shapes and custom vector objects. Now what I like to do is I like to use the shortcut Command, Control for those of you on Windows, and the quotation marks key, because what that's going to do is that's going to create this grid here. And I also like to go ahead and use shortcut R for the rulers. So I can go ahead and I can set up grids, guides, rulers, and do all that stuff and make some really clean layouts here. So the thing about this is I want to make some custom shapes. Now, I don't necessarily want to do a square per se, but I can do any type of shape that I want with this, and it helps that I have smart guides in place, because now you can see that I can make a custom shape like this one. So that's one of the basic things you're going to want to do in Adobe Illustrator. And then over here with swatches or with color, I can go ahead and I can change the color of this, whether it's the outlines over here or the interior. So I can go ahead and if I want, I can put a stroke around this. And then you see I have that blue stroke. If I go up here to the top menu for stroke weight, I can actually increase the thickness of that stroke to whatever I want. And over here, I can change the width so that it's not necessarily consistent all the way around. I have a bunch of different options for this. You can make some custom options for this if you'd like. That's available to you. And this can be really good with use for typography. But I'm just going to set this back to something reasonable like 2. And we're going to make this uniform again. You can also go ahead and use some custom strokes like a charcoal brush if you want more of a sketched look. So these are just some things that you can do with a basic custom shape. We're just going to delete that for now because we're going to go over to the actual shape tools. We have the rectangle tool here. We have the rounded rectangle tool, the ellipse tool, the polygon tool, and the star tool. These are going to be your primary tools for building shapes in Adobe Illustrator. And I'm going to show you how simple this really is. So let's go ahead and make something interesting in terms of an illustration. Let's go ahead and make a pencil. So we're going to go ahead and we use the rectangle tool to go ahead and make our pencil. I'm just going to put it here on our guide so that it lines up and so that we just have that guide as a reference for everything else that we're going to make. Next, I'm going to go to the polygon tool, and I want a triangle here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell it that I want a 3-sided triangle, and the radius that I'm going to use doesn't matter because I can always change that to suit my needs. Then I'm going to rotate this holding shift to get it to line up the way I want. Now I'm going to zoom in here. I'm going to use shortcut Z, and I just want to make sure that these shapes are lining up correctly. And they are, for the most part, for the way I want it. But I don't just want this triangle here for our pencil. We're going to do a little more than that. And I'm just going to drag a guide from here so this is always lining up. And also, if I want to align these, I can just select both of them. I can either click them with the Shift key held down and select both of them, or I can just drag with the selection tool and get both of them here. And I can go over to align and I can make sure that they're centered. And in this case, they're going to center to the entire document. But I can change that with align to over here, and I can make them to the selection, which is what I want to do for now. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to undo that so that they go back over to where my guides are. Zoom back in. Okay, so I've got that going on. The next thing I want is I want that piece right in between the pencil lead and the actual point there. So I'm going to go to the polygon tool, and I'm going to tell it that I want to create a trapezoid, which is going to be this 5-pointed shape here. So I've got that. And even if I turn it, actually I'm not going to turn it. I think that's fine there. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to do something a little interesting. We've got this, but it's not the shape that I really want. I want something where it's actually going to cut off across the top there. No problem. I can go to the delete anchor point tool. And what this is going to do is I could click on any of these corners here where you see an anchor point, and it'll delete that and collapse the shape. So now I have the shape that I really want, and I just use shortcut V to go back to my tool. Now I've lined this up so that it is what I want, but it's not quite there yet. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to select this, drag this down, hold shift, and that does something a little closer to what I want. Still not quite there yet. Rectangle for this metal piece, and I'm going to do more or less the same thing here, and then I'm just going to shift this up, and that's going to be my eraser now. So you can already see that this is kind of coming together, and I've got the beginnings of a basic shape for my pencil now. So that's looking pretty good. I'm going to select the color over here, and I'm going to go ahead and select this tan. Yeah, that looks pretty good for right now. And let's go over and get some colors, maybe possibly from Cooler. Maybe not. Let's just go ahead and make this yellow like that. And okay, so there's one more thing that I want to do here. I want this to be black, and I want this to be pink, and I want this to be a silvery gray. All right, so now I've got more or less the basics for my pencil shape. And I think that's looking really good all together. I think that's fine. Now again, this is some basic Illustrator, and this is looking pretty flat right now. But we can do more with this to make it not be flat anymore. We can actually use the gradient tool. So what we're going to do is we're going to click on the gradient tool over here, and I want a little bit more of a transition. So I want some of the, this orange that we already have in the pencil. So I'm just going to drag this over to the gradient over here, and I want some of this darker orange. So I'm just going to drag that. And so now I've got this gradient. And if I want to make it a deeper orange, I can do that. And that's what I want to do. I just double click on that, and now I've got a deeper orange. So I like how that looks. And if I drag that over, that's what it's going to be on my pencil. Now, if I don't like how that looks, I can always adjust it. I can go over here and I can play with these sliders, and I can adjust the overall color. to be what I want. I can also adjust the angle of this. So if I don't want the gradient to go so plainly or dramatically from right to left like that, no problem. I can adjust it. I can adjust the angle. I can adjust the overall gradient transition. I can play with all of these things. And I do kind of like how that looks. And to make this feel less flat, and we're just going to get rid of our guide for a moment here so you can just get a better look at it. One of the other things we're going to do is now that we have this gradient, I don't really think we need this stroke. So I'm just going to get rid of it. And you see that that actually looks really nice. So we're going to make another gradient here for our pencil. And the way we're going to do that is going to be very similar again. And we're just going to prioritize that. So what we're going to do is we're going to drag this up. All right, so we've created our brown gradient. Don't feel like I need this stroke anymore. So we've got that. And if I wanted to remove the stroke from multiple objects, I can actually just select both of them and I can do that, and it's not a problem. So what if I don't want this black to just be so solid and plain, and I want to give it a little bit of a shine? I can actually do that with the gradient tool as well. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag this black up here, get rid of this, and this color is now going to become, whoops, get rid of that. This brown color is now going to become something else. We're going to probably go with a shade of gray here. And what we'll do is we'll adjust the gradient slider so that it's a lot more subtle. And while we're at it, let's go ahead and slightly adjust the angle here. Let's go with maybe let's go with a negative 60-degree angle. All right, so to be consistent with our lights to darks here, we're going to go with this 135-degree angle. All right, so that's actually looking pretty good. We're going to do something a little different here with our metal piece that's in between our pencil and our eraser. With the gradient for that, we're actually going to make that a radial gradient, which is going to go from inside out. Let's make that transition a little more pronounced. All right, so we've done that, and this gives us kind of a steel look for our metal band here. And I want to move it actually a little closer. I want to change kind of a little bit of the proportionality space between some of these objects here. And we'll just do that with the move and shift tools. All right, and now for the eraser. For the eraser, we want to do something very similar to what we've already done here. Let's go ahead and double click on that. And let's use a little different angle here for that. Maybe we go negative 150. I want to rotate this whole thing, I can just grab everything, hold Shift, rotate it like so, and now I have it. So again, these are a lot of the basic things you're going to be doing in Adobe Illustrator, and this should help you get started with any project you need to do. There are a ton of other tools over here, as you can see, but these are the main ones that you're going to be working with. The only other tool that I really want to cover here before we close out is the direct selection tool, because I think that that one is important to cover in this particular case. And what you can do is you can select individual anchor points and you can manipulate them. So we could drag this out and we could make that pencil lead longer and thinner. We could go ahead and we can manipulate the corners of these by selecting and holding Shift, and we could drag this out and make the eraser longer or shorter as we see fit. But again, we could also manipulate that portion of it just by using the standard tool. So that's not a problem. We could just do that with the standard selection tool / move tool, and no big there. And so that's how we could handle those things. There's a lot of different ways to do things in Adobe Illustrator, very similar to Photoshop and your other programs. Most of your shortcuts are also going to be the same, so just kind of keep that in mind. The reason that we use Illustrator in the first place is because we want scalable objects that can be resized easily without loss of quality. So I can make this as big as I want, and you see how big it is now. And if you look, there's no loss of quality. We can zoom in as much as we want, and this will not be pixelated and grainy. That's something you can't really do with raster graphics in Photoshop, and that's the real power of vector graphics and our ability to manipulate them and resize them to our heart's content. So if I want to do something interesting here, I'll just drag this off the artboard, make a duplicate, make another duplicate. Actually, let's just stick with the one. I'm going to turn this at an angle, and you've seen that I'm fond of doing this kind of thing. I'm going to group all of this, and I'm going to select it, and I'm going to right-click transform, and I'm going to hit reflect. I'm going to tell it to make a copy, and you can see what that does there, and this makes this interesting object. So you can manipulate and you can use that any way you want. Now bear in mind, there will be things like this that happen sometimes, and you'll want to adjust that. So in this case, I'll want to you'll want to adjust things like that. Well, I hope you guys learned some of the basics of Adobe Illustrator by watching me work through it in this particular tutorial. The reason I used this approach was I think it's better to show you how to do something by actually doing it instead of just giving you a lecture step by step on, oh, here are the tools, here are the tools. It's like if I actually work on something that you might need to be able to create, even if you're not creating a pencil, you could use all the steps I did here and create some kind of basic illustration object or shape and be able to do that effectively. So I hope that you guys like this learning style and the way that I approached it. If you do like this and you want to see more tutorials like this, let me know in the comment section below. Let me know what type of tutorials you'd like me to keep doing for Adobe Illustrator. I know I've promised to do some logo design stuff in here, and I will definitely get to that. So just stay tuned. Let me know if you have any questions about things that I did in this tutorial. Or if anything was confusing for you. Like this video if you like it, subscribe, check out the other Adobe tutorials on the channel, and as always, you guys, thanks for watching.